Hello and welcome back to Dawn Chorus Writes, a Miraculous Ladybug fanfiction and audio fiction. Hi, I'm Dawn and this is the series First Kiss, written by Jheqia, so a part of Marichat Monday and during Fusion November. So make sure you go and give her some likes. All of her information are linked in the description below. Go and see the other stuff that she's written and make sure you give this channel some likes. Press that like button, comment down below what you think of it, what's going to be happening so far, and subscribe if you haven't already. We're at part 3 and there's just so many other things happening, so why not just press that button. Okay, I hope you enjoy. Bye. Part 3. At what cost? Adrian smiled to himself as he finished the last of his notes before packing up for the day. His plan for wooing Marinette was working. She was the centre of attention these days due to his little gifts, and he was proud of how well she was handling herself. She deserved the attention. Now he just had to start the making Adrian jealous phase. He had to admit that if this hadn't been all his own doing, then he would be getting jealous. He would have been afraid that Marinette would get swept away from him and he would lose her friendship because of this new attachment. But he was behind this, so he should be able to pull this off, right? After all, being a model meant he had been trained in how to put a front over whatever he was thinking and feeling, so he should be able to convince her he was getting concerned. But there had been a moment when she had put on the locket with such a sweet, wistful smile playing around her mouth that his heart had tugged at him. Was it possible she was falling for all this, even knowing it was a game? He hadn't considered that possibility. Still, I have started this, and I should finish it, he thought. He turned to see Marinette talking to Adrien and Mylene. He walked up behind her and placed his hand on her shoulder. She turned to see who it was, and a blush painted her cheeks. He swallowed hard to dispel the lump that surged in his throat. Marinette, could I talk to you for a moment? Alone? Her lips parted in surprise, then she looked down and nodded. Adrian took her hand and led her to the back of the classroom. Marinette, I know this is all new to you, and if anyone deserves to be happy, it's you, but why was this suddenly so difficult? Stick to the plan, Adrian. This is all for her, after all. Yes? Her voice was a whisper, her bluebell eyes looking up at him through her lashes. That look nearly undid him. Her eyes were so like ladybugs, and he had never noticed before. His heart pounded wildly, and he felt himself blush. He wouldn't be able to go through with this if she kept looking at him like that, so he did the only thing he could of. He pulled her against him in a tight embrace. She stood frozen in place for a moment, and then gently wrapped her arms around him to return the hug. I don't want you to get hurt, he murmured, completely forgetting the words he had prepared for this moment. He could feel her warm breath against his shirt, and her hair smelled of lavender. Oh, Karen Bear, what had he got himself into? I don't want you to fall for something flashy, only to discover there is nothing there. Adrian? I don't know what... She stammered into his chest. He had to offer an out. Hoping she would take it, he said, just tell your friend to back off and let this guy know you aren't interested. There's no shame in setting boundaries. Marinette released him and, putting her hands on his chest, gently pushed him back a few centimeters. He was sure she could feel his heart hammering away under her hand. She looked up at him, her eyes wide and wondering. She looked like she was about to say something, maybe break down and tell him about her bet with Cat Noir and give him an out. Then she took a step back and looked down. Maybe you're right, she sighed, fingering the locket he had given her with delicate fingers. This has probably gone too far. It's just... Her voice trailed off in a wistful tone and she bit her lip in a cutest way. What? He asked from a mouth gone dry. I guess it has just been nice to pretend someone wanted me for me. What have I done? Even though she knew it was just a game, it had resulted in this special girl feeling noticed and recognized for probably the first time. Having others see her as someone who could attract such attention was new to her. He had treated her like a princess. Kat had named her, and she had softened towards the idea despite her insecurities. To break it off now would leave everyone asking questions and probably leave her feeling unseen again, hiding behind her mask of awkwardness. He sighed, knowing he would have to go through with the bet as the least likely way of hurting her. If that was the case, he had to go now. Adrian squeezed her shoulders and without thinking, leaned in to kiss her on the forehead. He heard a sharp intake of breath as he pulled away, not making eye contact with her. Just be careful, Marinette. With that, he ran out of the room, heart pounding and lips tingling to follow the next step of his plan. Marinette watched as Adrian ran away from her. He had been worried about her. That much was obvious, but she had never seen him so stern before. He cared about what happened to her and didn't want her to get hurt. That could be just their friendship kicking in. But what about that hug? She thought as her cheeks burned. True, Adrian seemed to be the unscholared in the matters of personal space, and it wouldn't have been the first time he had taken her hand, touched her shoulder, or draped an arm around her shoulder for comfort or out of good fellowship. But this had been an embrace, as if he was afraid for her, or maybe afraid of losing me? And the kiss he had planted on her forehead had been firm, almost desperate. She shivered from the suddenness of it all. Had it really taken only a week for Adrian to see her differently? Oh, sugar and cookies. Kat is going to be insufferable over this. That thought brought her back to herself. She left the classroom and headed down the stairs to the courtyard, her mind still reeling and cheeks aflame. As she neared the steps outside, she stopped. There stood Cat Noir, halfway between her and the road. Upon seeing her, he took the stairs 3 at a time until he was right in front of her. He got down on one knee and presented her with a pink rose. For the fairest princess in the land, he declared, loudly enough for the students who were nearby to hear. Marinette took the rose from him and smiled. Don't you think this has gone on long enough? She murmured sweetly. He took her hand and pressed it to his lips. Not until you get your kiss, he said for her ears alone, then louder. Will my princess let me whisk her away? She rolled her eyes at him, but nodded. Let's go somewhere private where we can talk. He gathered her into his arms and launched them over the rooftops with his baton. He carried her to the roof of Notre Dame and set her down in a sheltered nook, unseen from curious eyes below. He casually leaned against the angled roof beside her, looking smug. I see you got my little trinket. He flicked the locket around her neck lightly with a finger, the same way she would flick his bell in their silliest moments. Do you like it? She blushed. Sugar and cookies, what do I do with him? Yes, it's lovely, Cat, thank you, she said aloud. So, princess, how is the play progressing? He looked at her sideways through his mask in a way that looked both coy and devious. Well, I'm the talk of the school, if that's what you had in mind, and soon to be the talk of Paris. Or did you not notice all those camera phones pointed at us? She rubbed the soft petals of the rose against her cheek and slid down until she was sitting crossed legs, not looking at him. You took an enormous risk, you know. Ladybug will probably be furious with you. On top of that, Adrian is worried. He doesn't want me to get hurt. Fooling him, everyone, like this just doesn't feel right. It's like lying. Perhaps we should stop. He deflated a bit and sat down next to her. If you want to, he replied with a sigh. To tell the truth, it's been fun to pamper you this last week. Ladybug never lets me do these kind of things for her. Marinette swallowed hard. It was true, she tried to keep Ladybug's relationship with Cat Noir as professional as possible, but that had become harder since he started hanging out with her as Marinette. He was still a flirt, but it was more like he was just practicing as opposed to trying to impress her. That took a lot of pressure off, and she had found she enjoyed his company that much more for the light teasing. That he was generous, kind, and thoughtful was appealing too. But this is hurting Adrian, she insisted. You should have seen his face, Cat. He looked so worried, almost like he was afraid. That is not what I want. He doesn't deserve that. Cat Noir hung his head between his propped-up knees, gloved hands hanging limply out in front. What do you think Adrian deserves, then? He deserves to be happy. As much as I love him and would be amazing happy if he asked me out and treat me the way that you have this last week, it isn't worth his happiness. A tear splashed onto the pink rose in her hand. Just seeing him smile and being his friend is enough. And it wouldn't be the first time. I'm used to it. Well, what do you mean? She sighed. I made Adrian a special scarf for his birthday, but somehow he got the idea that his father had given it to him. That made him so happy, and I just couldn't take that away from him. Part of me still wishes he knew, but his happiness is more important. For a while, neither said anything. Then suddenly she felt his fingers gently lift her chin. He was kneeling in front of her, his eyes brimming with tears behind his mask. At what cost to you, Marinette? Don't you deserve to be happy, too? She took his hand from her chin and pressed her cheek into it, closing her eyes as the tears fell. It doesn't matter, Cat. He took her head in both of his hands and shook her gently. Of course it does. Of course you matter, he cried venomly. You deserve to be happy too, Marinette. Never say you don't matter. You matter the world to me. He wrapped her in his arms, shedding silent tears into her hair. His muscles were taut, and he was trembling against her. You are every inch the princess. Don't you ever forget that, and don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise. She laughed through her tears. Oh, what, Cat? You'll scratch their eyes out? He chuckled weakly, and she felt him relax. It was a start. You know me, princess. I'm always up for a good cat fight. Good. If he is back to making cat puns, he is going to be okay. She reached up and hugged him, her hands tangling in his hair. Thank you for everything this week. Oh, I forgot to ask, he said suddenly, shifting away from her. Have you gotten your first real kiss yet? Does a kiss on the forehead count? His face went blank, as if he was confused, and then shook his head as if to clear it. Probably not what you had in mind, huh? He rubbed the back of his neck in embarrassment. She giggled at how uncomfortable he suddenly was with the potential outcome of all his shenanigans. That is not generally what is referred to as a first kiss, no. but it was nice of him to be worried. Not exactly stepping up, is he? He drawled. Adrian is clearly concerned about me. I don't want that for him too, on top of everything else he deals with. Cat shook his head. No, but what if I backed off a bit? Still doing nice things for you, but not as over the top. Would that make things easier? I don't know. She had seen that Adrian's attitude had changed around her today, but did she want to press this? I'm not sure that is a good idea. He took both her hands in his. Please, let me finish what I started, at least until next Friday. If nothing has happened by then we'll call it off the bet. She had never seen Cat so determined except where fighting Kumas was involved. This meant something to him. Didn't he say he was enjoying pampering me? What about a compromise? She offered. You have until sunset Monday. If nothing happens by then, she flicked his bell with a slight smirk, then we'll say that I was right and I won. He stood and offered her his hand to help her up. Lifting her in his arms, he whispered in her ear, You drive a hard bargain, princess. Are you sure you won't team up with me instead of chasing Adrian? She glared at him but dissolved into laughter. Have you seen me? I'm too awkward to do much effective chasing. That's why we started this, remember? They both laughed as he set her down on a secluded side street and said goodbye. Adrian spent the weekend planning. Well, scheming really. He was so determined to play this game outright for Marinette. His hands tingled and his chest ached at the thought of her. She was willing to give up her own dream of the perfect first kiss because she was afraid it would end up hurting him. And the scarf? How many other dreams had he accidentally crushed by not seeing her value, leaving her to give them up for his happiness? No one has cared about me like that in a long time. Not since Mother disappeared. Instead of the well of grief the thought of his mother usually brought up, this time he felt a surge of love and friendship for Marinette, and a determination that he would grant her wish. You realize you're just setting yourself up, don't you? Plag mumbled around a mouthful of cheese. You're auctioning yourself off to this girl on a bet. What would you get out of it? That isn't the point, Plag, Adrian said. Marinette is special to me. She is sweet and kind and thoughtful. She deserves to have someone in her life who treats her like a princess she is. And if being kissed by Adrian Agress is what she wants, then that is what she'll get. Then why not just kiss her last Monday and win the bet at once? The Kwame asked. Why all the flowers and the mushy stuff? Because I'm trying to protect my secret identity, amongst other things. Marinette is a clever girl. Don't you think she would figure it out if Cat Noir made the bet with her and then Adrian kissed her the first chance he got? You're making my head hurt. Besides, she hasn't figured it out yet, has she? With all the times that you've been together. True. But I have been careful. But just leave it, Plag, he snapped. We agreed Monday would be the last day. I want to make it special for her. Suit yourself, the Kwame replied. But don't blame me if Ladybug tears into you over this. I think just this once it would be worth it, Adrian said as he finished copying down the poem he was going to leave for Marinette on Monday. In the meantime, he would send her a few texts to check up on her and make sure everything was okay. Hey, I just wanted to apologize for running away yesterday. It wasn't cool. A little while later, she responded. Don't worry about it. It was awkward. I understand. How are you doing? Everything going okay with that other boy? He watched as the ellipse bubbles flickered on and off for several minutes. Then, sort of? I told him to tone it down. He wants one more day to spoil me and then he'll stop. I'm sorry for what I said. Shouldn't have interfered. I know you aren't the type to be easily swept away. Why? Are you jealous? Smiley face. He blinked in surprise. Was she flirting with him? After all her complaints about being awkward and too shy to do anything. Maybe being treated like a princess gave her more confidence. Why do you ask? No reason. He felt a mysterious grin tug at his mouth while he typed. Just between you and me. Of course. I was a bit. She didn't respond for a long time. He saw the ellipse bubbles appear and disappear several times, as if she was typing and then erasing over and over. He could imagine her typing out confessions and then deleting them out of nerves. Finally, the bubbles disappeared. Eventually, he had to transform and get ready to go on patrol that night, as it was his turn, but just before he left, he took one more glance at his phone. I'll tell him to stop if you ask me to. I want you to be happy. Her words warmed his heart. That she had the nerve to finally tell him, as Adrian, some small part of what she felt, awoke something inside of him. He felt like he could fly, or fight Hawkmoth single-handed. He could take on the world for her. He tenderly kissed the screen of his phone. Marinette Dupan-chan was truly one in a million. All I want is for you to be happy too. Follow your heart, Marinette. Adrian snuck out early, Monday morning, to copy down the poem for Marinette on the board of the classroom. Writing out with extreme care, he smiled at the words that so encapsulated his feelings for her at that moment. A kiss? When all is said? What is it? An oath that is ratified? A sealed promise? A heart's avowing, claiming, confirmation? A rose dot on an eye of adoration? A secret that to mouth, not ears, is whispered? Brush of a bee's wing that makes time eternal? Communion perfumed like the spring wildflowers? The heart revels in the heart's outbreathing, when to the lips the soul flood rises, braming. His heart was light, and he was truly happy. He couldn't wait to see her face when she read the poem, to finally ask her to go out on a date with him, to treat her as a princess she was. For he realized last night that what he had told her was true. She had meant the world to him. He wanted this, not just for her, but for him as well. He would not miss out on this amazing girl's love any longer. He slipped back into his room and went to school at his usual time. But despite the warm day and the bright sunshine, something felt cold somehow. Students were huddled in groups on the stairs and in the courtyard, everyone staring at their phones and whispering in frightened voices. He went into the classroom and found Alia crying into Nino's shoulder. What's going on? He asked, his heart pounding with a sudden premonition. Dude, it's Marinette, Nina replied, patted Alia on the back. She hasn't been heard since Sunday. She's gone missing. Thank you for listening to part 3 of First Kiss. Oof, something's changing. So make sure you smash that like button, subscribe so you do not miss out on part 4, which will be coming out next week, and comment down below what you think is happening and what you think is going to happen. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.